guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave. So today's another comparison video. Again, it's with the Atari versus the Intellivision, and it's an Activision game called Beamrider. I've already done two Activision games in comparisons. The first one was Pitfall, that, the comparisons, they're very similar to each other. And then River Raid, where they were, vastly different. So I'm very curious to see how these two games will play out. I don't have a lot of experience with Beamrider. I never owned it as a kid. I never had it on any systems. It wasn't until I ended up picking up a ColecoVision copy of it, which at the time I actually thought was the Atari version when I bought it out of a flea market. So very interesting, but I brought it home and I was able to play it on my ColecoVision anyways. So this will be my first actual go at comparing the two for the Atari and for the Intellivision. So let's start off with the Atari version first and see how it goes. Okay, so we got the game booted up now. So you can see it starts off with a really nice looking screen. It's not really a title screen as much as it is just the kind of the first board. They do that quite a bit with the Activision titles. And you can see there's your main characters at the bottom there. You're that kind of triangular thing. And at the top you got that's like, I guess they call the sector sentinel, which you have to beat after each sector. And then you got your torpedoes on the right there, the little purple or squares. Those are your torpedoes. So, kind of typical Atari square graphics. So let's get to starting this. So you're entering in, I guess, the sector. And it says I'm on sector 1. And then below you got your men there. So I got 2 extra men. Or ships, I guess you want to say. But I mean, this is quite impressive for an Atari 2600 title. I mean, showing the depth of the characters, the saucers that are flying in, really trying to give you that 3D feeling. Not as three-dimensional as, say, a game like Tempest, where it really tries to use the vector graphic look. But this does a pretty good job. Oh, okay, so now I gotta try and use my, torpedoes, which I failed. So I believe it's after, 15, you have to hit 15 of the ships, the saucers, and then the sentinel will come out. Oops. That was my mistake. I was using my torpedoes there. Keep in mind this is an Atari, so there's only one fire button, and when they have to get creative when it comes to having multiple actions. So oftentimes it's a combination of the button and pushing in a direction, or maybe they just reserve a direction. So in this case, the fire button, the red fire button, is just your regular missile, or what you shoot with, pretty much. And the pushing up is the torpedo. So you gotta remember that you can't just keep pushing up all the time. Dodging stuff. Now the vertical lines can get a little bit distracting, I've noticed. Oh yeah, I used up all my torpedoes. Yeah, the only thing that can kill a sentinel is a torpedo, so you use them up, you lose them. So it looks like I got my 3 torpedoes back, and now I'm on sector 3. So, oops. And I guess the torpedoes also blow up those, what are they, rocks? So the saucers are the white things, those are what you want to hit. It does have a little bit of a soundtrack to it, I guess. The sound of the beams. So I'm chasing the beams. If anybody's into programming or read about Atari programming, the term chasing the beam will be familiar. Whoa. Okay. I find that I keep making that mistake. I keep pushing up as if I have to go forward. Because it does feel like a kind of game where you would be flying, or you would be pushing forward to move. It's probably one of the things I'm just not too used to in playing this, is because really you're only going left and right. Oh. Darn. Hit it again. See if I can get it. Oops. Did I push up again? No, no. Just gotta go left and right. This is another game that would be a great candidate for the paddle controller if the paddle controller had a second button on it, which it doesn't, unfortunately. Because you're, you know, in a lot of these games where you just gotta go back and forth and you gotta hit targets or dodge targets, the paddle controller was perfectly designed for that. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of, like, really decent games that were... I mean, there's a few that were released, of course, but... like Kaboom, for instance, but... I think there probably could have been a lot more games that could have utilized the paddle controller. Whoa, jeez, that's hard. Got all that crap flying around. Okay, so we got Beamrider for the Intellivision now booted up. So you got that little copyright 1983 flicking around there. That looks all kind of neat. And you can see we got the grid there, but there's no other detail on the screen. So, I mean, I guess they just wanted to have this as the home screen. So let's just say players 1 to 4. So I'm going to be one player here. Okay, now this is different. So it looks like we're inside like a space station here. You can kind of see through the crack there where the beams are. So you got to push up. There we go. And we're out. Oh yeah. I mean, it looks similar. The saucers kind of look the same. The grid looks like a tad bit different. I don't know if it's because it's all blue or there's just some kind of details that's just kind of sets it a little bit apart from the Atari one. It doesn't look as distracting as the Atari one to me. I don't know why that is. There's something about it. But the saucers, I mean, they look the same. They're still coming at you the same. You can see the depth. You can see them, you know, they get bigger. Your ship looks the same, except you get that red kind of floating thing in front of you. I guess that's for the added detail. I think I remember that was might have been on the ColecoVision version now that I'm thinking about it. And of course, there comes our Sentinel. Alright, well that was easy, but maybe that's because it was the first sector. Okay, so I got a bonus man, so I got 2 ships left. Yeah, and then you can see the torpedoes there. They're not, you know, like on the Atari where they're just squares. They kind of look like torpedoes. And unlike the Atari version, this one actually is able to utilize the Intellivision controller having multiple buttons. Specifically the 2 different fire buttons, so or side buttons. I don't know if people call them fire buttons on the Intellivision paddle controller, but yeah. So you got the 2 buttons, and now it's no longer pushing up to shoot a torpedo. So I find I'm not, you know, messing myself up by accidentally pushing up. It's like I said when I was playing the Atari version. It kind of gives you that feel like you want to push forward, like you want to go forward, as if it would make you go a little bit faster. That kind of like the, you know, games like Space Harrier and, you know, a few games where you actually are going in this kind of forward direction. I mean, if it wasn't for the moving beams, this game would just be like Space Invaders or one of the many of, you know, shooter-style games where stuff's just coming down at you. Uh-oh. Okay, so now it's getting harder. And I just missed them. Yeah, so those crazy things that were coming at me, that happened right away on the Atari version, but on this one, it gives you at least one level where you don't really deal with those. Now it's starting to look like the difficulty is amping up. So I guess I'm in Sector 3? Or am I in Sector 7G? But the sound, you know, it's got that similar sound effects to it. It's got the similar, you know, that background sound. Kind of sounds, you know, reminiscent of the Atari version. Except for that launching sound, I think it sounds a little bit better on this one. The explosions are, you know, pretty good. Explosion sounds are pretty cool. Sounds like the same sounds you get from Astro Smash when you destroy the certain rocks, I should say, not bricks. Oh. Oh, I thought I had him. Darn it. It's hard to not hit those things. They just jump right in front of you. Alright, so we're in Sector 4. Let's see how hard this is getting now. It's probably going to be a lot of crazy crap flying around. Gotta watch out for those boulders. Boulders or asteroids or whatever they are. Probably asteroids is a better term than a boulder. You can blow them up with the torpedoes, but then you waste your torpedoes, so... I guess if you're really in a pinch, you gotta use it. Then you don't get to... The blow-up scene's the same. The wreckage of the ship looks the same in this one, too, as the Atari one. Whoa, what's that thing? A lot of crazy enemies in here. Ah, what did I get hit? I think this is the last man. It only shows you how many men you have when you're on that screen, I believe. I think, that's the space station screen. And after that, you kind of don't have that indicator of how many men you have, or how many ships you have, I should say. Oh, blown up again. So there we go. I mean, again, I think both of those games were really fun to play. The Atari one is surprisingly good. I mean, it did come out in a later, you know, the 83, 84 time, when games started to improve. But Activision never really, I don't think, ever had that problem where the game started off kind of not so good and got better. I think they started off great and got even better than that. But Beamrider is a good example of a game where I think no matter where you port it, it's always going to be a fun game. And it can look very primitive and still be a fun game. I mean, you just got to have the grid, you got to have the little ship, and then the stuff coming at you. So it's not overly, you know, it doesn't rely heavily on graphics, I should say. But I think the Atari version does give you some pretty good graphics. The Intellivision just amped it up a little bit. I like the grid better in the Intellivision one. I didn't find it as distracting, and I'm not sure why. I think it's just the way it was intersecting. It just kind of looked better. And it was all blue, and you know, the screen looked a little bit nicer. But the Intellivision, it starts off easy, and then it works its way into hard. And I felt that the Atari, where it pretty much just starts off hard. And I can't imagine it getting much harder, but I guess it does. Anyways, let me know what you think. What's your favorite port of this game, if you've played it on any other systems? It's probably been ported all over the place. Like I said, I had the ColecoVision have the ColecoVision version, but I'm pretty certain it's on a lot of other systems, like the Atari computers, and probably on the Commodore 64. I just never had it. Anyways, hope you liked the video. Throw some comments down below. Hope you subscribe. Talk to you later.